Jeannie, could you,
Good to go.
could someone close the door, please? Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Let me see.
Hey, Jeannie, let's call the meeting to order and start the recording.
We're good.
There's no roll call on this anymore, but I'd like to mention that the entire committee is here. So if you have a list of the, all 7 of us are here. Tom Arcari of QA&M, John Copeless, Colliers, Austin Hall, and Scott Cochran from the town. Bill Stableford from one of the original committees, and Jeannie in the background doing taking notes. On the board, we have again two other two members, Joan and Joan Walker and John Lamrod. Mark Skalenka is with Colliers, and I think that's it. I think that's pretty much everybody. First item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from our last meeting. Does anybody have any comments? Corrections? Nothing?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second that. Any discussion? No. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Good.
I'm going to need to abstain because I wasn't there.
Okay. Perfectly fine, John. Thank you. The liaison reports. Oh no. The chair comments. Actually, I got notes here. I got a number of comments. Item 11 on the under new business is review and reconcile the cost estimates. Since our last meeting, we've received the design development cost estimate, and that information will be available to the public when we with the minutes of this meeting. Also, for the members, I've distributed a worksheet. And the purpose of the worksheet is to integrate the design development estimates into our total estimate, which includes things, the total estimate includes things that aren't in the design development documents. The starting point for the determining or looking at the design development, integrated design development estimates into our total is the referendum, the original referendum. So there is there's actually a 2018 town budget that was presented as part of, 2021 town budget, or 2021 that was presented with the referendum. So that was the basis that I picked for this discussion. What we are going to try to do is match items that were on the original referendum budget with the design development estimates and things that are omitted or that aren't on the design development estimate.
Excuse me, Joe, for the record, the referendum was February 15, 2022.
The estimate that I have that was used was from 2021, November.
And that would have been required because of timing to get the referendum on the ballot, and all of the boards would have had to have approved the dollar amount and everything else. So that would be correct, that probably that number was probably actually generated in spring, I believe, of 2021.
There are, as I said, there are parts that have changed significantly from either of these budgets. And there are some things that don't match, don't line up totally, and those are the things that I'd like to discuss with the committee today and with Tom's help, to try to determine what would be an estimate for if we built the Academy Community Center with the same general design as it was presented in the referendum. And I'll give you an example. If we go from a 3-phase 450 to a single phase electric system, and there's a cost in that, it's difference in that, that's not going to be a difference that we're going to worry about. But the entrance, which is a significant difference, would be something that we're going to have to discuss and decide upon. Although it's pretty clear that the original entrance was what was presented to the public as part of the referendum. And there's some other things that are moving parts. One is the septic system, so it's the outdoor playscape. So what I'd like to do when we get to item 11 is to go through line by line from the original estimate, the 2021 estimate, and determine what do we believe is our current cost for the building as it was presented. Not necessarily single, ceiling lights versus hanging lights, but a building that was envisioned when we did the referendum.
What's your goal to come
Yeah.
out of that?
The goal is to come out with an estimate that includes the design development and also some of the more original things that weren't in design development that may or may not have changed.
Will that give us the intent then to come up with what we wanted, sort of the original design, versus then we can have an intelligent conversation about how do we get to what we actually have using the funds we have? And then we can document line item by line item,
Yes.
what may stay in, what may have to go.
And there's also the question if there are more funds available. And so that both of those would be further discussion beyond what we're going to do here. Our point here is to do the cost of the estimate for the building as it was envisioned. And if we have time, this may come at the next meeting, but if we have time, what would be a alternate building that met the 15.9 total budget? Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
I mean, I have some questions, but we can.
But yeah, this is just chairman's notes.
Yes.
The next item on the agenda is liaison reports. Austin, you have anything to report? Scott? Al? Bill, would you like to make a comment? You're not in the liaison, but you.
Thank you, Joe. I don't have anything to add.
Okay, thank you. That was Bill Stableford for anyone who missed that. Review and approve invoice packet, and I believe, Anne, you have that. That's an item for you.
Yes, you all should have received the invoice packet. There were two versions, so we'll look at the updated version. There are 3 invoices. I don't have any comments or objections to recommending that for payment.
The amounts, because I'm going to sign this, the amount should be 89,075, 894.20, and 4,800.
The things that we talked about that wouldn't fall under the markup for, those are accounted for, so all the things that do all the markup are appropriately applied. Asking. Recollection.
Yes, everything's appropriate. The only markup item would be the expenses.
So there's some consulting expenses, yeah.
No, I got the,
Yeah, the item we were reviewing the last time has been removed from the details, I believe.
reimbursable expenses.
Yeah.
Marked up, that's appropriate.
Motion to approve the invoice summary as presented.
I'll move.
Second,
Second.
any further discussion? Favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Um, The next item 6, review and approve budget line item transfers, if applicable, any?
Not today.
Have none?
No.
Um, Mark or John, do you have if this next is Collier's update, do you have an update other than what we're going to discuss?
Don't have anything outside of the upcoming new business, Joe.
Okay.
I don't know, Mark, if you have anything to add?
Tom?
I'll just add that you're aware we went through the estimate process and the reconciliation process. It was a time-consuming effort. And it's QA&M's position that the reconciled estimate that's prepared is a very good number. And it is the number that represents the current market condition. So I do believe that the process we went through is the one that we put in place, and the information we have to work from is good. So whether we like the number or not, the number is a very solid number. And the two estimates that we received were pretty close, all in all. So I think we're in a good place, and we just have to make some decisions about the next step.
Thank you, Tom. This is an opportunity on the agenda for public comment. We've already polled everybody here. Anyone on, Gina, do you have anyone online that would like to make a comment?
No hands are raised at this time.
The next item is review and discuss Fuss and O'Neill's limited environmental site assessment and their proposal. I just saw those recently, so I have no comment on them. I was wondering if anyone else had a chance to review it in a way that we'd be able to either discuss or if we should delay discussion and approval to the next meeting.
What would be approving?
There's a, let's see.
They're asking to do additional work.
I did. read it.
Okay.
So I did read it. There were 3 recognized environmental concerns from phase 1, mostly all underground storage tanks. And one other item, I forget what they called it, but it's not a recognized environmental concern, but there was a drum of oil left in the basement, some stayed on the concrete. The underground storage tanks were in 2 locations. One was out front in the corner on Main Street. The other one was on the side of the building. There was an original tank there. It was pulled and replaced. That's area recognized concern 2 and 3, and then 1 was in the corner. They did soil sampling. They pulled a bunch of soil samples. Pretty much all of them came back clean, non-detect, except for some soil samples around where the replacement tank was on the side of the building. The soil samples above the tank were clean. The soil samples upstream of the tank were clean. So, and there was some indication of soil staining, an odor, no hits on the PID, stuff like that. So there's indication that some leaking occurred at the tank or overfilling while the tank was filled. So, and on top of that, the town did not follow the state rules and regulations when they pulled the tanks, properly close them. So there's some concern about off-site migration from that one tank in area. So they want to install some wells to make sure that the surrounding drinking water wells are not.
And are these test wells that for a limited time, or are these wells that would be for the next 5 years or something like
When
that?
they install them, there would be sort of permanent groundwater monitoring wells.
Mhm.
Now, how long they last is dependent. If you don't use them and pull samples from them, they'll die off pretty soon. But, you know, you can probably walk around town and see them in parking lots, little metal plates with triangles on them, say testing well. So I'm not sure, they didn't go into how many and where, or I just don't recall how many and where, but what they're, in my opinion, what they're proposing is standard practice. They're not, it doesn't look like they're trying to drum up homework or anything that's out of the ordinary. I think it's reasonable, and practical, based upon what they found, the tank's not being properly used. If I had lived in around Academy, I'd want it.
Is there a regulatory requirement that we do this?
Some of the hits are above drinking water quality standard, so you can get into how far did it migrate and stuff like that, and it shows it around the tank, but, you know, plumes take time, so they do want to monitor it and see what it is downstream over time.
And when was that tank removed?
I think it was 2000, well, quote me on this, I think it was 2004.
20 years.
2014 or something, 10 or 20 years ago.
There was ones removed after that because I was sitting on the Board of Selectmen when that happened. So there may have been different ones removed at different times, I would think.
Oh, and this, the last thing is, then this does affect us. So there's the tank. There was probably some overfilling or some leakage, maybe not leakage from the tank, but some overfilling, so some immediate soil impacted around where the tank was. But also the exterior of the building apparently has some lead paint. So if you read into the report, it does say any excavation, they recommend some level of soil disposal be monitored, probably tested, and we may have a budget impact on soil disposal should we find lead in some of the soil immediately around the building.
Now, it was mainly concentrated on the south elevation.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if that was only because where they tested the soil or.
I think it had to do with the paint, the paint that was predominantly on the south elevation of the building was referenced in the report as far as the soil sampling.
Yeah, so there may be some sort of costs for additional disposal.
When you're talking lead though, you're talking lead paint
But paint, correct.
pieces. So you may wanna remediate the upper levels first before we just start excavating and mixing it all in. To minimize the impact.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to clean up the soil and then remediate.
We'll be disposing of
Facade, putting it back.
You're right. The facade should be probably done.
Back to the wells quickly too, are you sure that that's part of our scope in the building committee? Because as Joe mentioned, they'll have to have a plan in place to test, it'll be well beyond our time, and it's really a town
But I
issue.
think it might be covered under the brownfields grant.
And yeah, Aaron's looking into that.
Yeah, I think we want the town to weigh in.
Yeah, she's
Before we
she's
start
in
putting
communication
monitoring
with the Department of Economic and Community Development and is waiting for some further feedback, but her initial thinking is that this would be covered under the brownfield.
The test wells would be covered under the what?
Well, they're not, somebody come and actually drill and put wells in.
Right.
And then you would have a monitoring program where they come in every 6 months or a year, whatever, and test. So it's well beyond our time where they'd be testing. I don't know if there's other areas in the town where they're currently doing that.
That's on the leaking tank. Now, what about on the lead tank? We would be doing the excavating.
Yeah.
And,
But the lead paint chips aren't gonna leach, you're gonna collect them.
but that would be, again, if they require disposal, that would be ostensibly on us, yes.
I think so.
Yeah, part of it.
If I may, just from a facilities perspective, if we are inheriting the management, the upkeep of this building, we would want to do it by the books in terms of removing the tank and putting in measures to test it. And part of that testing would go into the yearly annual budget of what the building operation costs are, which is something the town has not discussed yet. However, I do intend that we will most likely need custodial services at this building, along with annual maintenance contracts on all of the systems. So that would be something that we incorporate in. However, the removal of the tank and the immediate well drilling, I would foresee that it would be under your scope, and then we would inherit the upkeep of it as we would with all of your mechanical systems as
The
moving
tanks,
forward.
the tanks are removed at this point.
Yes, okay, so the cleanup
It is
of the site.
it's an operational I think at this point, it's, do you do it? And then it certainly is an operational decision.
Right, and so from operational standpoint wise, facilities wise, we do not at all want to open up the town to future liabilities, especially now that we are aware of the situation. So we would, again, not our purview, it's the building committee's purview, but as somebody who is inheriting the maintenance of this building, we would want to do things by the book.
Well, the one thing is Fuss O'Neill's contract is with the town.
Right.
It's not with QA&M or Collier, so the town should respond to.
So I think at this point, we wouldn't necessarily approve this. What we would do is we would maybe make a statement that we have no objection to it. It appears to be the right thing to do, and
I do think it's the right thing to do.
we would recommend it, but we don't necessarily approve the contract. That's up to the town. Would that be,
I'm just trying to understand where you think budget-wise from the town that is going to come from.
No, I think the drilling of the wells,
Okay.
and the initial work that was done so far,
Mhm.
and I think the drilling of the wells, correct me if I'm wrong, hopefully will fall under a brownfields grant.
Right.
And that work, so the initial, say, capital work will be
Mhm.
done under there. But then there will be an operations side, which you were talking with, which will have to go under your OpEx budget. Something,
Right,
maybe
monitoring.
it's quarterly or semi-annual monitoring,
Okay,
it's a couple
Yeah.
$1,000s a year.
but the lead paint issue, we would,
That's
The lead paint, I think, would fall under us, because we're renovating the building, have to do excavation, we have to dispose of the soil properly. I think that will fall into this budget's, building's budget.
We don't we already have budget for remediation, because we had asbestos.
Yes.
And lead
Yep.
already.
yes.
Okay, so there's a budget line item for that.
Yes.
For-
correct. But if you can identify the top 6 inches has lead, we can just strip the top 6 inches off and get rid of it,
Right.
not take up the whole. But it's good to identify.
Yeah.
But I think the monitoring wells are, in the future, be a bigger issue, so.
And John, as the project manager, could you hold that in the instructions somewhere so that when it comes time to remove the soils around where we're going to demolish the building and put the entrance in, that we remember this?
Well, you're gonna know because on his plan, he's gonna have.
It's gonna be part of the
It's on,
contract.
correct.
What was that?
It's gonna be on the contract documents for doing any excavation for any footings or any foundation work, so they will already know
Okay,
the location.
but the process, that's what I was,
Do we only have to touch the soil if we're excavating it, or should we just strip that anyway?
I think it recommended stripping a portion. It was very loose language, stripping it. Or stripping it and evaluating it, or something like
Right, I
that.
think they've taken tests already of the soil samples.
So regardless of whether we're doing the excavation work there, that should be indicated on, it's part of the bid for the remediation work,
Right,
right?
you're gonna have a whole list of things that you're gonna have to dispose of, hazardous and regulated items, they'll create a list, and then the different disposal facilities will. Right, so if we have ballast, we have fluorescent lights, that goes somewhere, right?
Yeah,
Lead,
certain.
lead paint will go somewhere else,
Yeah, hopefully,
contaminated soil will go somewhere else. There's a waste generator
yeah,
form, and Fuss O'Neill have to sign that the person who's disposing of it have to sign it. It's a whole process to
yeah,
it.
it'll get done.
It'll be handled appropriately.
and we do have a significant budget for the remediation.
And hopefully the brownfield grant picks up.
Yeah, it could,
Okay.
yeah, some of that.
Most of all,
We heard it didn't include construction activities, though, right? It was just.
remediation.
Well, that could be
It's like-
considered remediation.
Well,
site, though.
I'm good with that as long as it's
Well, yeah, I think it was
Pre-existing
testing,
condition, I think you can.
site assessment, evaluation, and
that.
hopefully some remediation.
We hope. Because normally lead just goes in a drum and you dispose of it, but if it's mixed with soil, I'm not sure exactly what.
It's just expensive soil.
Yeah, exactly. But where it goes.
So the next is the item 11, reconcile cost estimates.
Joe,
And,
what was the
John,
outcome
can
of
you-
that?
pardon?
The outcome.
What was the outcome of item 10?
I believe what we said was that we have, that since the contracts are with the town, that we recommend that they follow through on the recommendations of Fuss and O'Neill. But it's not for us to approve that contract.
I think John mentioned that Aaron was looking into it.
Right.
Yes,
Aaron's looking
Aaron's
into it.
still, pursuing that.
And if the brownfield doesn't happen, then that may come back to us, I would assume.
Yeah, it's interesting.
So,
But right now, her sense was that the brownfield would pay for the wells, the first cost of.
It makes sense that they
It's
usually-
the monitoring, it's a monitoring system, it's not remediation, so that should fall under the,
Well, they'd have to put together a plan on where they're putting the wells too.
And they had a cost in there.
Yeah, they had a proposed,
What did it
about
all
20,000 or something to that.
Yeah,
effect.
so they're figuring something already.
Yeah.
This, you guys had a meeting as well about a septic system issue, is that related to this?
size.
vaguely,
It was about size.
Yeah.
and, like scope and where it was gonna be located.
Is that something we'll talk about in a future meeting? Or is that
that'll be something for tonight.
Okay.
Nice.
Okay, and John, can you share your screen? Can you make the spreadsheet on that screen? It's the only screen we have, in fact. Oh,
Not
can you
sure.
do that one up there, I guess?
How would I tie into that? Austin, can you help
It's like
me?
4 separate screens. Melted.
There's a.
That's the one for my left.
But so did me, so did I.
Like you have this,
Might have an adapter or something.
Oh, you don't have HDMI?
this-
So
You
US
can really plug anything in the biggest, anything you want to plug into, you know, back.
Oh,
The
yeah.
hockey, the hockey.
Every,
Exactly.
it's rat's nest of every.
You can cook whatever you want.
You can come up with- Piece 3 of them together, to make any.
That's it, we've got, it's like all wired,
Yeah.
Oh,
you just show up in a room, it's like, hit a button.
Yeah, create shares even.
Your meeting just shows up.
It knows you're in the room.
Yeah, like, I don't know how much you paid for that. but
Yeah.
it's Pretty sweet.
Yeah. Still think about it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to be around. See this. Try to do it. I'm gonna try to let time along. You got glasses.
so Joe, can I ask a general question? Sure. So estimates are based off of like first quarter 2024 pricing?
There is to answer your question, there is an escalation for the 1 year difference between 2024 and 2025.
That's built into that?
It's built in there somewhere. Yes.
Yeah, well,
Okay, you're gonna have to make that bigger.
And what is that escalation rate? For?
Tom, 4%?
So we used Turner's index,
Yeah.
which was 4%
Yeah.
from December 23 to December 24. And I believe, unless it was changed, we believed to carry 6% or 6 months worth of escalation.
So you
And we carried 2%, and I believe Mark S. opined and recommended we increase that, but I don't know if it made it to the reconciled estimate, I think it did. So, but it has been taken into consideration. But it's a limited amount of escalations to the end of this year.
It's actually based on beginning construction 2024, that's the little.
Yeah, it's
Carrots
up
up there.
there. Started construction
And
fall
also-
of 2020.
I was saying put 6 months, basically.
Yeah.
Okay, fair.
And if you notice, we took out, the original estimate had an escalation of $1,700, which is a higher level, and we actually took that out because the escalation is now built into the price. So we didn't carry forward 1796.
Correct, these are in millions.
It's,
right?
yeah, this is in hundreds of thousands, so it's actually 1.7 million, not 17.
So we had 1.7 million built in escalation of our estimate for 2021,
Right.
Correct.
which was.
It's based on 2023 construction time.
Joe, can I say something, Joe?
From that perspective, it's a reasonable time to actually start.
Mark, I don't think they can hear you.
Oh, okay.
Oh, sorry.
Mark?
Mark?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Very faint. Now we can.
Okay, I just wanted to make one comment about the escalation. So we carried 4% escalation from 2021 to construction 2023. What we learned recently is escalation during the year of 2022 was 8%. So the construction market really took a spike in 2022, which is a big contributor to why some of the numbers are so far off. So I just wanted to make that statement.
That escalation was built in down the bottom, right? So if you go to the top, when you're comparing numbers across, that's without escalation.
That's what that's, yes,
Yes.
the 1.7 million.
Because I just took your spreadsheet and went right down and I was looking to see what the percentage differences were, and some of them weren't that bad, so you're, fit in.
Okay, I think you're gonna have to scroll up, John, from here. And I don't know how, see the reconcile February, that's where we should put our, what we believe are the current values that we would use if we were to do an estimate that was effective today. So it would be column J, when you just see column J. So you have to move over one. And
So-
then now we lose the numbers. So you either have to
You could,
Try to reduce it.
try to reduce it, yeah,
you could also freeze it.
Yeah, just go into.
okay.
There we go.
There we go. So what I envisioned for this estimate, for this exercise, is we would actually go through line by line or block by block, and say we should carry this over, or we shouldn't carry it over.
Well, the first 4 items we need, for the
Right.
first 3.
The first three, got it.
So it looks like for heavy renovations, we're looking at a 15% increase off of our base, which
So John, could you just pull those three,
that's 1.6.
move over there, those three.
I'm sorry, what are you doing?
Just pull those over to the building recommendation.
Oh,
For those of us that are on Zoom, is there a possibility to also share this?
Well, Jeannie, who's running the meeting, would have to share her screen, which is that.
Unless.
Or you can join the meeting and share your screen, John.
I've got it up on my screen already. Do you want me to just share it from mine?
Which one are we looking at? We're looking at estimate analysis?
Yeah, this the first tab or the second tab. Is that the first? First tab.
first thing.
Yeah, the 2024 0208.
The one that was sent Friday afternoon, I think.
Yes, Friday afternoon.
It might be easier if those, Joan, if you pull that up, and John, if you pull that up on your computer screen. and you
It's
follow-
dated Friday, January 26th. Is that the one? The estimate analysis, correct?
I'm gonna go ahead and try to share it.
Oh, good. Well, you already have the numbers in the third column, right? Wouldn't we just write yes or no in the seventh one? I guess you can carry us.
Okay, so we're looking at this.
It'd be easier.
You want to do it that way?
I don't know, whatever was easier for you,
Yes.
you're running the screen.
Because there might be some that we pick a different number.
Yeah.
So why don't we just say yes for these, and then we'll just Y and S.
All
So
right, so those are,
so
just
yes
yes.
there. Yes, yes.
My only question with this,
Joan, is it up on your screen?
Yes, I was looking at the other actual reconciled estimates, not this.
What we're estimating now. If we have a different quantity between the lines, it's gonna make the numbers not line up.
I understand,
Okay.
but what's going to happen is, as we get down, this reconciled DD estimate, there's a total at the bottom of that.
Okay.
And we'll be able to determine if we pulled everything from the reconciled estimate forward.
Okay. Yeah, no, I get the concept.
Okay, but I think we're, can I just speak to this spreadsheet? If we look at row 9, correct me if I'm wrong, that's the total of 6, 7, and 8, correct?
Correct.
So we don't pull that over, because we're gonna try to just add the column up at the end. So we don't have to pull that intermediate construction over for now, but we can certainly do it when we go in. So when we finish this and publish it, we'll need that intermediate number, 9511. So I had a. Go ahead.
Okay, all right, so I'm just trying to figure out, because numbers aren't adding up for me, so I'm just trying to look at that.
And the only
Okay, so
difference
the markup,
is one has all of the alternates and then the stuff at the bottom's been harvested out, right?
Correct.
So
This column, let me just quickly clarify, column D are the numbers that were associated with the original budget going into the referendum.
mm-hmm,
F is the reconciled DD estimate numbers based on our meeting with the 2 estimators. So those numbers are in column F.
okay,
H is the reconciled DD estimate with all of the alternates that were associated with the project that are listed down here. These are all the alternates that were part of the bidding process, broken out accordingly within the construction or in the DD documents. So that is this column H, and then the intent was column J is going to be populating the decisions tonight in this column here to determine, which of these alternates are going to be carried over.
So you thought, okay,
So that was the intent of this column.
okay. So we really don't have to do
So
anything.
you don't, this is
There'll be
just
no
yes
addition.
or no here. We don't have to do any math here. The math should be done
Okay.
on this column.
Okay, good.
Okay.
So what's 24259?
4259, those are the markup costs. And those are equivalent to
Okay,
this collection of line items here that are associated with the markups.
None of
Design and
that's,
price, I'm sorry.
none of that's under control.
Correct. Some of it is depending on,
they're just percentages.
their percentages.
They're percentages.
So it could change.
It could change, but we don't have a choice but to pay the CT education.
could you,
Correct.
could you highlight the cell Y, 691, just, or any of those in column Y? Just any of them, are they calculations or just a single one?
Just numbers.
Yeah, they're just numbers. So if things change, if anything changes, it's not gonna be represented here. That's a 24259 as a plug number. Right.
so that markup costs were never in the original request, the 2.4 million?
All the way over.
Those are,
It's not in the referendum column, that's what Joan says.
They were included.
those are factored
Above.
into that amount.
Okay, it just wasn't broken out.
It wasn't broken out, yes.
It was broken out, but that lump sum is in the referendum number?
Correct.
Whereabouts is that in there?
Is compared to 11.9.
Yeah.
Correct. Yes, it's this number here
So they should just
compared essentially to these two.
Okay,
numbers.
when you say this number here, we can't see what you're pointing to?
$8,540,900 number, which is
Includes,
referendum Column D, this cell here, total building construction would include or incorporate those markup costs at that time.
So, but now are we saying there's an additional 2.4
Yeah,
in markup?
yeah, it's
Oh,
11.9 compared to 8.5. What's that
Okay, so for clarity, okay, with the public, you've got to put those markup costs within the heavy, the light, and where whatever category they're supposed to be in. Because otherwise, we're not really talking apples and oranges here.
Well, I think they are. They broke, yeah, it's
No,
broken.
just fill row 9 added together.
They should be added into row 9, yeah.
So the 8.5 includes a 1.9 markup. So 9D includes a 1.9 markup, correct?
This number includes the markup costs incorporated into these numbers up above here. The intent was that those markup costs were incorporated into these costs here at that time. So that is the 8.54 is technically compared to those two numbers combined, if that's. the-
Right, so,
But you gotta leave them separate because then those rows don't add up.
Right.
That's. the
well,
problem.
but they don't add up now. If there was somehow, I have to say, if the markup cost for the heavy renovation is included in the 4 million, then the markup cost for heavy renovation should be included in the column next to it, 4.7 million. Because right now it looks like we're throwing an extra 2.5 million in there that wasn't in the original referendum.
Yeah, I agree.
What, you wanna sprinkle it in over the 3 numbers?
Yeah, just so it looks like it's apples to
That's what I'm
apples.
saying, you have to sprinkle it in and.
Do
It's
we
all
need to?
percent. I know.
I mean, the totals are the same, but.
Revise later, that we can just get to the,
It's either that or break out what it would have been and put it, so lower heavy, lower light, lower the 3 on the original and say the markup cost included a $1.9 million markup cost.
John, I'll, rather than try to do it here.
Yeah.
Will, if you make a note on that, if there's a comment. If you make that, put it in the column, I believe, N is comments. Put that in column N, and when we do it, we'll be sure that's done.
So Joy's gonna take.
No, I don't need to have it done tonight. I'm just saying you really, in presentation format, because right now it only looks, oh, it's below $1 million difference and it's actually $3.5 million difference.
Each of those, but.
Okay.
Okay, these add alternates were taken out before we did the DD estimate. The question we would have to ask ourselves is, should we leave them out and would the building look like what we promised? And we could talk about each of them individually, or should we take some and put them into our reconciled DD estimate? For instance, the new stage and ramp. That would be something that we would have expected an accessible ramp in the library area, but it's not. But we took that out originally. Tom, do you want to comment on that? You had a comment on that when we talked about this earlier. That's specifically the new stage and ramp.
In regards to the new stage and ramp, the existing ramp is too tall. We can't make it accessible with the existing stage. We can't make it accessible with the ramp. We'd have to add a lift, or if we leave the existing stage, it won't be handicap accessible. So that's why we were rebuilding it lower. And the cost to do that was approximately 43,000.
Right, but I just want to verify that's not the main stage. That's the small stage.
That is the stage in what we are calling, it's in the South Performance Hall. Recital.
That's what it was, right?
I call it recital.
So,
Okay.
okay.
Just not working out now.
Okay.
Are you looking for opinions yet?
So
Yeah,
can we just start at the top and move down?
My opinion is get rid of all except the staging ramp, because it's an accessible issue. Make it accessible for everybody who might have disabilities, but the others can get it on later.
Well, can I ask a question about that though? If we go one by one, so the operable wall partitions was going in the front area, which you're calling the recital area, because you're knocking out the two walls. So if you don't have anything there, all of that recital area and those two side rooms are gonna be open.
Yes.
Good. No, that's the committee, if everyone's,
You are closed.
or closed.
Yeah, I'm
Austin,
good with that.
anything from operational aspect of using that area that you'd want to have a operable wall partition to close off those areas?
I think ideally you would want to, but
Yeah,
Well, I'm just saying that,
Yes.
I mean, they're operating their facility, and I,
so anything you take off of that list there is gonna affect the ability to program for the public. I think, you know, if I had a.
I'm just gonna go one, I have some comments to the other ones too, but the first one, you would
The
say,
wall partitions, I think, would be on the bottom of my list.
okay. So are you asking for comments, Joe?
Out of those four, that would be on the bottom.
The
of
at least.
And comments on the next one, well, maybe we could,
Well,
we'll
you wanna go talk about all four and then
we'll
go
talk
back?
about all four and then go back.
So the second one, that's the bleacher system that was going against the east wall that would be pulled out in the event that there was something going on the gym floor. If we don't do that, what's the other option? We're gonna buy 300 chairs and put them out?
or you just don't host those kinds of events and you have the bleachers later. It's still not.
But it's not gonna.
You'll
But
lose
I
some
mean,
functionality, but you'll still have the gym.
Austin,
Austin,
comments?
what do you
What's-
think?
What's the seating in a 10-tier bleacher system? How many?
Offhand, I don't know.
Come on, Tom, off the top of your head.
Couple hundred?
I think the more important thing for this committee at this point, and I don't know if you've actually seen the bottom lines for these, but the more important thing for this is that rows 13, 14, and 15 can be added at any time in the future. Row 16 is an infrastructure and accessibility item.
And I would just add to that is if you do scroll it down to the bottom, you find out we need to find 1.5, $1.7 million.
No, but I guess my only point was
We're
that
stretching the pennies
if
here.
we're gonna host anything in the gym and use the stage, people need a place to sit.
That's correct. And you
So
can
you
do
either
that
need
with
chairs
operable chairs.
Or you need something.
But then we have to buy chairs and store them.
Well, you're gonna need them anyways, because the current plan is a combination seating system. Where you have chairs that sit on the floor in the front half or front 2/3 of the auditorium, and then the back half would be, tiered bleachers that pull out that give you an elevated perspective of the stage, so you're looking over the chairs in front.
And
Guys,
from
we're-
a standpoint
we're
of
jumping-
how do they, that hand, is that positive, those ones that are in the cafeteria?
We don't use them. They block the basketball courts from being used. So they're,
No, I'm talking about in the.
No, in the cafetorium, it's the only way for seating for any production that's on that stage. So they're used actually quite often.
No, I understand, no, but from a facility standpoint, they're good? Oh, I don't know, I've seen them down and sat in them, that's all I know, I don't know how they pull them in and out. If it's-
bleachers pulling in and out. I mean, it's a lot quicker than having somebody unstack lots of chairs. But to Tom's point, you're still going to have the chairs, whether or not you have the bleachers. So without the bleachers, it's just a matter of buying even more chairs. You're
And
going to
storing.
need to buy the chairs and store them regardless.
Guys, we seem to be jumping around a little bit. We started at the stage and then we're in the gym and then we're on the wall partitions. But I'd really like to suggest if we can focus on one thing and finish that discussion and move on. I'm having a little trouble following where we're at.
Row 12, I guess, is where we're looking from row 12 down, the ad alternates. And so maybe we say yes or no to each of these and then see what the total looks like. Is that what we're trying to do here?
Sure.
Can I put one more bit of info on my end? If we don't have the basketball hoops, it's not a usable gym.
That was gonna be my
We
point.
might
You
as well not.
don't, you don't need a scoreboard though, probably, right?
We definitely need new hoops. Without that, it's not a
No, but you can use the
functional.
little flip, like scoreboard thing, right, for the youth basketball. You don't need a big scoreboard mounted to the wall, right?
It's not just youth basketball that uses the facilities, but is that what people are expecting us to have in there?
Let's.
Well,
start-
people are expecting a full theater too, so we're gonna have to.
I know exactly.
The digital
Yeah, like,
ones, not the.
still.
Yeah, let's start from the bottom. New stage and ramp. Anybody have objections to putting that in?
No.
Okay,
I just had one question on that. Did we look at the cost of a lift as opposed to tearing out and building a shorter?
John, I saw a lift in one of the tours we had. They said they never, ever use it because it's just so cumbersome.
I would strongly, from a facility standpoint, because we have to get them inspected every 6 months and you have to keep them operable because they're a liability if they are not operable. I would strongly suggest not having a
Okay.
lift.
Basketball equipment and scoreboard.
Okay, but can we just really take a step back? So that is a redesign. We're going back in for the new stage for the recitals stage. That has nothing to do with the main stage that will be in the gym. I just want to make sure that everybody understands that.
Correct.
And that there's nothing there for ADA compliance, correct?
Tom,
There, as in
in the stage in the.
The large stage at the end of the gym.
currently, that is correct.
There's no accessibility.
There's no accessibility.
There's no accessibility to the main stage. There's no lighting, there's no nothing to do anything with that main stage. So basically, we're adding a basketball court. Because the recital stage is not something to be used for theater,
John, could you put that
and
note
potentially not even recital for the depth that it is.
that currently there's nothing, there is no, although we're picking this for compliance, there's no ADA accessibility for the main stage. For the gym stage, main stage.
Right, and how deep, once again, somebody's should have this. How deep is the recital stage and the depth and width of that stage and the new redesign?
Off the top of my hand, I don't have it. I can scale it. I can get that to you.
I've actually got all those dimensions and
It
I
might be able to be bigger, smaller.
compared them to some of the.
We're not in design here. We're
No,
in estimates. Whether it's 9 feet or 11 feet, it's probably the estimates the same.
It's not gonna move the number much. Let's just talk about the numbers.
Go back over, basketball equipment and scoreboard. I'm with Boston on this. It's not a gym without it, so I'm saying yes. Anybody object?
I think as long as they're retractable, the
Yeah,
hoops, because if eventually this is gonna become the main theater, and it appears as though it probably won't be done immediately, but it really is the only way to have a theater in that space, a true theater, is to use that stage.
I would, I don't know who made the point earlier. So I'm not disagreeing with you. I think it's not a gym without it, but how much of that 77 is a scoreboard versus the hoops themselves?
That was
There's $1 for the scoreboard and $77,399.
No, point two is for the scoreboard, and 77.
So we take the scoreboard out, we save $1. How's that?
No, the only reason
It's a lot of electrical, and if it's half, I mean, I would say
Well,
maybe
you
you
look
can do
at
the scoreboard with different.
Again, we're not in design.
Yeah.
This isn't.
But our original was like 30-something thousand for the basketball equipment, right?
You could do one without the other, that's my point. They're lumped together, you could do
Right.
one without the other.
But Joe,
Right.
it went from 30-something thousand to 77,000. So clearly the scoreboard and the other stuff added cost.
Like, I would say do the hoops, but put the electronic scoreboard in later, unless the high school's planning or something.
Guys, if I can offer a quick opinion, all of these items,
Hold on, John.
Make a note of comments to, we'll put the 77 in now, but we'll have to cost reduce by eliminating a scoreboard if that's appropriate.
John had a comment.
Okay, John, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that each of these items in this 4-item list are all directly related to programming and the ability to use the space for what we had originally committed to the town. So I would suggest that it's appropriate that all of these things be in there until we determine that they can't.
I agree with that. I mean, that just gets us to.
I mean, we already know they can't.
We already know they can't. There's 1.3 million,
We already know we're
Over.
short.
and then if you add in the septic, it's 1.7 over. And I don't
Yeah,
think
but
the
this is,
septic's
there's,
really an animal.
we may, we'll get to the septic later. Let's,
The point is,
and we'll get to the total later. The operable walls and, okay, I'll take we're gonna take a vote. John Lamont says we should just put them all in. Because they all have to do with the operation of the building, and if we have to take them out, we'll take out later.
I disagree
I
with that.
disagree with that. but-
That's two.
I'd say you could always add them in later.
Any other disagreements?
Yeah, I
Five to two.
pretty much disagree with most of the items, but
Okay, that's 4-3. We still have for Molly.
Next item is the design for the entrance.
This is one that when we looked at it as a committee, and even now, that's a serious change from what we promised the town. So that.
we also promised a theater, so that's a big thing too. So there's and the theater isn't even listed at this point,
I
so.
would recommend that we do not include this negative, the exterior stairs and courtyard, and we stick with the original estimate, which is built into the upper numbers. Any objections?
It's my
What-
preference. I don't know
what
how
was-
many to remember
I
without it.
didn't catch what you suggested,
Yeah.
Jeff.
We're just gonna be looking like column H. We're just saying take everything.
Well,
Right,
that,
I mean-
take it one at a time, let's not jump to conclusions. So that stays at a 0.
What stays as a 0?
Well, leave it at 0 for now, but if we get to cutting out discussions about cutting out programming, I want to come back to that, because I would strongly disagree with that.
That may be in, when we look at how we get to 15 minutes.
Okay. John and I can't hear the discussion very well. I just
Okay.
want to let you guys know. So if you guys could speak up and use a deeper voice or something, because somebody just said we should just. We're trying to figure out and follow, and I'm sure it's going to be just as tough for the people who will be watching this, the throngs that will watch it on YouTube. But
Thank you,
I
John.
think
We will, where's the mic pickup?
Is it just over there? Or is there one on the?
Do we have to?
it's
speak
when
to-
everyone's talking at the same time and you're kind of going back and forth, and then you go, okay, great. Then we hear muddled voices. So if you could just speak one at a time, I think it would be helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you get the discussion about the alternate entrance? Does everybody understand that?
No, that's the one we missed.
The assumption is that going from the original design to the design, the exterior stairs and corridor is a major shift from what the public saw when we did the referendum. So my proposal is to leave it in here. In other words, don't take that amount, that deduction here. But if we have to, when we have to get to something that's a bottom line that's close to 15,900,000, that's when we would use that deduction.
And just my opinion on that one is it retains the functionality, it retains compliance. It's not as beautiful in form, but if we have to sacrifice programming functionality, which is what we're committing to the city for the sake of form, I would say this is one that I would definitely take the deduction. And I say that,
I agree with you, John. Like that would be, if when we have to look at a significantly reduced building.
No, I don't think it's a significantly reduced building if you move the exterior, because right now that 500,000 is baked into these numbers. You take that out, we're at 18.7 now. Or close to 18.8 million as our total project costs.
Even with that deduction, if we took that deduction now, we would still be significantly over the 15.9.
Well, we can do one of two ways. We can go through this list and talk about what everything we want to add in and then realize we're over and go back. I don't think we're being critical enough.
I believe that, I agree with what you said originally, that we would put everything in, we think it's part of the program, the original programming. And then we have it either another column or where we say, okay, let's make this column add to 15.9. And I don't think we're going to get to both of those things tonight. That's why I'm trying to move through this. What is the original, what is a match for the original programming and original design? And if there's anything that can be eliminated, we could, without impacting that, like the light, the lights or the electric, then we can pull that out of this design and the later design.
So you're not necessarily trying to hit,
So-
you're trying to hit what we originally promised and what that would cost.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
You're trying to compare the original.
So if that's the case, then I think that if you're trying to get a number to the original vision, because part of the vision also had a significant theater in there, then none of these are going to hit that number because we don't know the cost of making that main stage a theater. I would hazard to guess at least another 500,000, if not more, just in lighting, sound, and soundproofing.
Did we make that, do we make that comment? Do we have that as a comment on the
Stage of
stage and ramp, right?
The comment though would go toward the design, not so much this estimate.
The
They didn't
comment
actually
goes,
estimate
the
that.
comment goes to the fact that in the original design, we did not have a full stage in the gym.
We did not.
That's what Tom says.
Okay, so that was
Not ADA compliant, and I don't know what else, but that was not in the original design.
Okay, so it was not in the original estimate.
Yeah.
And it's not in this estimate.
That's correct.
Okay.
And we
so
made
we're
a note.
comparing The same.
But it's the number one thing that people want, though.
If we have a design question for Tom, that's gonna add scope, that should go back to him, and then that could be estimated as
Right,
an alternate, right?
yes.
And maybe
But I requested that time and time again to give us a rough estimate of what that would be, because that's something that potentially funds could be raised for. And since we're still back to square one on that. So
I see Tom taking a note that is a request for him.
right. I think it was ignored because they knew it was going to be a large dollar amount and we were going to be so far over, we were trying to figure out what could go in there. But if we look at this town and what was noted as the top thing in this building by the subcommittee, theater was the number one thing, and not a recital theater stage that is not going to actually hold productions. So it may be, yes, this is what was done in the referendum. What do people really want? That was the next thing. That's why we had to focus our design on what people actually want at that point, not necessarily what was promised at the time. So,
Duly noted. Thank you, Jim.
okay.
Could you, okay, this is the next, this is the site work. One of the things I've been saying was that there was no estimate of plazas and parking, and I was incorrect in saying that. In the original design, in the original estimate, there's $195,000 right there in the, for site improvements. And those would all be what I would consider necessary or original. And I don't understand what the 370 is, Tom, would you want to highlight that cell, John?
Get what column it is. That's-
Which one is that?
The estimate column, this is the
Oh, that's-
DD estimate column,
F-24.
and that cell is equivalent to two of the line items from the estimate. So if I jump over to here, that is taking,
126.
is it 126?
Yeah, I thought it was 126.
Go back. Okay, it's taking.
167.
So 166 and
167.
167. That is going to be in the cost estimate, site prep and demo and the exterior improvements. So it's these two numbers here combined to that figure that's on
370.
this cell here, 370.
Which tab are we looking at? Sorry.
The revised estimate from January 26th.
Okay,
And it's these two line items from the reconciled estimate. These two numbers here combined is equivalent to that $370,800.
Could you go back to the 370, the Tom combined, and could you highlight one of those two cells? What is that? That's,
That is the average between
Those are two
the first
estimates.
estimator and the second estimator after the reconciliation.
okay, then highlight the 333 on that same,
Up there.
yeah. That's just a plug number.
That's the plug, that's their number that they, yes, enter into the, that gets entered into
Square
the.
footage and.
But exterior improvement, what's A, B, C, D, E, F, G?
Those are all the things that roll up into it.
Yeah, but I don't see it roll, I don't see how it's rolling up. They're all zeros.
But the-
They did not break that out to equate to these specific line items. The only one that was specific was the landscaping and plantings. That's the 72.
And
which is
166.
Okay, could you go back to now to our original, or where we started? And I guess, Tom, how does that 370 compare to the 195?
I think the point is the original estimate carried $195,000 for a limited amount of site work. Fix some of the driveway, resurface the driveway, parking area, do some sidewalks, make some regrading and do some landscaping. The original estimate was a loose estimate. It was put together based on square footage and some preliminary improvements. Now we have drawings that are showing sidewalks that connect the parking area to the building. It has some grading work that has to be done to make sure that that's accessible. We now know that the entrance has different elevations, so we have some patio work, which is a connection. We're showing improved parking area. So that cost, the 370.8, loosely correlates to the minimum amount of site work that we have to do to accommodate the project. And that's about $175,000 more than the original estimate.
So to match the original design, we should carry the 370.8 to our current estimate.
That sounds right.
And I'm assuming, what did they do? They took so many feet outside of the footprint of the building and made a square, and then that's what they did,
Probably.
right?
It's general estimate.
Right, that's all.
Yes
$110,000
and no, but
We don't get it.
yeah, just in fairness, it's very difficult to compare the DD estimate
Correct.
to the original concept estimate, because the scopes.
We had some conversations in one of our meetings about what's in our scope and not. How much of this is in our scope? The exterior, I'm not saying the parking lot and the driveways, it has to be done, we're gonna rip up the building around, we're gonna make it safe to walk around. But how much of this is in the building committee scope, the exterior work?
I think if it was, I think we came down to deciding that if it was in the estimate, if it was in the original 15.9, then it was in our scope. If it costs more now, we have to hold that higher cost.
Makes sense.
Pardon?
Makes sense, yeah. Okay, this is what it is.
Then the next, if you go down to the 16.3, not sure what that is.
That's the unit. Us.
Utilities.
That's utilities line item cost.
We're just not sure.
I'm guessing it just did square footage.
And water and fire protection went up quite a bit too.
All this stuff.
Again, that's just the interpretation of the estimators as to how they're, reviewing the drawings and where and how they are aligning certain, costs to the breakdown.
Go back, Tom. Go back to the original. 16.3. I could take it in and leave it out, but it doesn't matter.
$16,000.
It's not gonna move.
Oh, I know what that is, I'm sorry. The 16.3 is the cost to bring the fire protection service to the building. The building currently doesn't have a sprinkler system. As a part of the design development process, it was identified that we have to put a sprinkler system in the building. That's part of the mechanical system increases. The original estimate presumed we would just update the fire alarm systems, carry $50,000 allowance. Now we're putting sprinklers throughout the entire building.
Does that mean we need that pump system that we were talking about?
We don't need a fire pump because we have enough pressure in the street.
That comes off the street.
Where's the fire protection necessarily? Why is the need to put fire protection in this when it wasn't originally in the scope? Sorry, just trying to
It's
understand.
current code, so once you touch the building, you have to bring it back up to today's code.
Have you confirmed that with the fire marshal? Because in other projects around town, we have not had that same direction.
So we had sit-down conversations with the fire marshal.
Okay. If he says, yes, you need it, then yes, you need it, but I'm just saying if it has been asked, because I know in other renovations.
Yes, if you want to have the conversation offline, we will.
Okay.
I contend that, yes.
So we have to carry the,
At least two.
Yeah, so $16,000 gets it from the main to the building, right? And then the 343 picks it up from the foundation and brings it in.
can you add, did you add the comment, John, that we brought that over because it's requires the, it's required by code.
Right, because that's also
Sprinkler
significant
system.
work into the ceiling fabric that we was
It's a
not
sprinkler
originally
system that's
anticipated.
required. Yeah, by code.
Does the whole building have to be
Yeah.
sprinkled?
It's required by fire marshal.
Any-
We'll have a
It
conversation.
doesn't say what it was.
Any other?
It's gotta say sprinkler system.
Oh,
Sprinklers, how about that? Something,
I'll put it down here.
Just write sprinklers.
okay. Not sparklers.
Sparklers, sprinklers. Those are-
Okay. And what is the 235?
$253
253.
is the sanitary, this is the sanitary system.
Now,
Well,
the problem,
So
The preliminary project,
Go ahead.
the preliminary estimate presumed we could reuse the existing sanitary system and make some updates to it. The existing septic system is not capable of handling the newly interpreted occupant loads for the building, as well as it's old. As well as the health official would like to see it, it's served by the 4 buildings on the campus. So the plan is to rebuild the septic field and leaching system, and it will serve all 4 buildings on the campus.
That's in our scope.
We need it anyways for the new building, so it doesn't make sense not to size it to handle the capacity.
Well, we're just conflating things now because we're saying we want to match what the original expectation was. Now we're saying, well, we have to do the septic, we have to do the sprinklers. I don't disagree with, there's significant costs, so that it's not really apples to apples.
I agree with you. I think the differential between making it this big and this big isn't that great.
Is what?
The differential between making it serve just Academy versus a couple buildings, you're still mobilizing, ripping up the grounds, repairing everything.
It all makes sense. I'm just saying the original
I
exercise
agree
we're
with you
going
100%.
through.
And the issue too is.
We are creeping a little bit.
Some
Yeah,
of the existing septic systems are where the parking lot's gonna go, so it doesn't make any sense to leave them on without tying it all in.
Can I make a compromise here? Instead of holding the 253, how if we hold the 65? That was the original scope. If
That's not.
if you take 235 and divide it by 4, because there's 4 buildings, you get about 60 grand.
Those buildings are
Not
significant.
that,
Just don't divide them by square footage.
Yeah, it's not gonna work like that. You just, I mean, we're still gonna have to mobilize.
I could dream, right?
From a facility standpoint, the intention is to make those buildings functional for town use. We are just doing the town a disservice if we put in a smaller septic and then have to tear up a parking lot to service those buildings in the future. So whether or not the taxpayer pays for it with this renovation versus a renovation in 5 years, the bottom line is going to be to the town, and it's going to be far more expensive if we do not do this now.
I'm not saying we shouldn't build it. What I'm trying to do is keep the academy portion of it at our original budget and try to understand what the scope creep is going to be as we go forward, how it's going to. The last meeting I was at that we talked about the sanitary sewer, it was there was no consensus on which on how it was going to be built and designed. Whether it was for 4 people, 4 buildings, or 1 building, it was and each of the 4 buildings would have a separate system.
Regardless, we need to do it for Academy.
Right.
It's probably not gonna be 65, it's probably more like just Academy, 200, 225.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Is it possible that the same work is being counted, or the cost of the same work is being counted under sanitary sewer and under site improvements?
No. they're
Just
separate.
wanted to ask.
No. But no, those are separate.
The other thing too, Joe, due to the sort of more than the site plan, the septic system's going like in the northwest
Yeah.
corner of the wood field.
The baseball
It's
fields.
about, yeah, it's about as far away from the building as you can get.
Yeah, it's a far run. I would almost say leave it.
Leave it as 250.
Yeah, it's the,
Okay.
the only note I would make was, does the town appropriate funds, because we're tying other buildings into site? There's some additional budget to do
well, I
some
think
of that
Joe's
work.
gotta go back to kind of say, hey now, you increased our scope a little bit.
The old town hall is now connected in.
And maybe we can sort of earmark those additional funds with the scope credit.
Right, we can line them up with the work that makes sense to do now, is efficient.
Yes.
It makes perfect sense to spend money now to make it easier on the taxpayer later. But we just
I
have to, I think, earmark those pieces so Joe can go back and say, hey,
Why is it this much higher?
Exactly.
We have scope creep, we have escalation.
Well, you have a couple
we
big
have,
ones right here. The sprinkler system and the septic system are big increases
Yeah.
based off of.
and the assumption to
Change the
reuse the septic system was
Mhm.
a big assumption.
And I mean, we're talking safety and health things. I think that we can absolutely bring this to the public and say, this is the best solution long-term on this kind of thing. And I think that that would be something that the public would agree with, I think.
I think if we eventually have to go to the public with it, we can
Mhm.
package a number of these things together as health and safety, and that would be both the sprinkler system and the septic system.
So, okay. I have a quick question. So, because there was a lot of conversation about the site improvements and it got a little muddled on my end. So the 370 is equivalent to the 195 as far as scope of work. Not
Yes.
necessarily dollars, but scope of work.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So, okay.
Yeah. Oh, data and communication?
Yes.
So again, this presumes all new data distribution throughout the building. I think one of the things we pointed out early on is that the original concept design presumed reusing a fair amount of the mechanical systems, the electrical systems. Those are all being replaced new as part of the project. That reflects a significant increase in the actual hard costs, which are above, but data and communications happen to fall down below because in the original estimate, that had its own line item. So full replacement of all the data and communications, as opposed to updating or just trying to reuse what's there, is 215,000 versus 25. Most of, if you went all the way up to the top, remember how we're comparing the hard costs, 8,540 to 11,9. The biggest increase between those two numbers is replacement of the MEP systems in full throughout the course of the whole building. So, but the data isn't, the data costs aren't in that 11.9 number. They'd actually be 12.1. They're down below because the original estimate had it broken out.
Got it.
So we have to carry the 215.6.
And is that hardwiring things?
That is correct.
Sure, it's a
As
combination.
well, it's probably a combination of hard wiring as well as Wi-Fi access, you know, for Wi-Fi service for the building.
Okay. I think that might be a place where we can get creative when it goes out to bid, but I think that's,
Just wondering, in the other tab, did they provide any line item detail for that, or was that just whatever the tab where's the estimate? 149. Was it just a lump sum?
yeah, because it's showing zeros here, so I'm trying to find the detail.
Cable distribution devices.
Just that, I
Right.
233 difference between 233 and 186.
And 149, I'm just,
86, because that's the
Oh.
reconcile. These were
okay,
the initial estimates, and then after the meeting and reconciliation, it was, this number here, the 233, was brought down to 180.
I think if a building doesn't have good data, no one's going to come use it.
Now, the 183.10,
Oh, plus the 65.
what made it,
Oh,
what made it bigger? What 183 doesn't match, was on our sheet, right?
it was 215.
You gotta add in
Well,
the
there's-
security and
There's another number, yes, there's
CCTV.
two numbers.
Oh,
there.
the 32.5?
The security is included.
Oh, yeah,
Looks like it.
the 32.5 and the 183.
Okay,
So it also
it's
should
two
say data
numbers, it's
communications.
149 and 154.
Security. That makes it valuable.
So it's this number plus that.
Okay.
No, that's a
Yeah.
good point.
Okay.
Right?
As you go through.
I would, you may wanna add that note there.
yeah, so it's
Data communications and security.
cable distribution devices, datacom, and then the security and CCTV, okay.
What do you guys have, like a tap card system with the town? For access? No.
Some buildings.
You may have a few rooms, right?
Is CCTV like, you guys, is that a standard?
I don't think CCTV is in there. I think that's the radio repeater, which we are putting in standard into all of our buildings because as of now, when you upgrade to certain window films, it blocks radio waves to all of the police radios. So the minute they step in the building, they lose communication. And obviously that is not ideal for a community center where you're going to have large gatherings. So we're putting them into schools where we need to retrofit and all of that. And so that's why radio repeaters have become standard facilities line item.
Okay, now there's some things that were skipped on there.
So,
I'm sorry. You want to-
No.
Oh, Joe.
yeah, no, so I'm assuming that the cable distribution and devices would also include video surveillance and access and that kind of stuff. That's all, because these are all $0. That's all lumped into that 183, correct?
Yes, at this time, we carried an allocation for a limited CCTV system. We did not have a radio repeater, but
It's down.
No,
to
it's-
the 32 is what it is.
those are things we will work out between the DD and CD phase. Remember,
Or you
Bill-
tell me you're not doing the screens that cause that issue and we're fine.
there you go. We're building layers of detail as we go through this process. We started at SD, now we have a lot more information. We're at DD. When we get the CD, we're gonna have a lot more information and you know, scope will get refined and costs will change and we'll work with facilities and.
What I would remind everyone for the security purposes of this building, from a facilities town standpoint, you do have youth and family services in this building, which can be a push point for security. And so then retrofitting and adding in more card access, more cameras and all of that is just added cost later down the line. Whereas if you consider it now and the functionality of the building and who's going to be occupying those spaces, there's economies in there. Just knowing the sensitivity of certain departments that are going into this building. Would you agree?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, yeah, and it's, so this only shows for electronic detection radio, it doesn't, and so there are a lot of zeros under, you know, cable distribution, video surveillance, access control, intrusion detection.
Yeah, I
So-
think they just use some square footage numbers and apply to standard, industry standard rates, and that's how they come up with their estimates. I don't think they filled in all the line item detail.
Well, they can't. right?
Typically, no.
We have to put specifications together
Yeah.
what we're
Right.
actually in the building. To
Yeah.
that end, we're not gonna know exactly. This is just an estimate off of the design drawings that we
Exactly.
have.
Okay, and it just, that was my point, it's just going into one area per se.
Yeah.
Rather than this is, security and CCTV will be covered by the 32.5 and the electronic radio, and the electronic radio repeater system. Yep,
Right.
okay. I got it.
We skip a couple.
There's something like site lighting.
Well, the
This
site
isn't-
lighting, some of these are incorporated into some of the numbers above, so site lighting, the gas. Those are things that are already incorporated into some of the line items above, so, similar to what happens with these four numbers here,
Site improvement.
incorporated into that. Some of these numbers here that are, not like.
Where's the cutoff?
I mean, that's something that's, being carried in the,
Heavy bit.
heavy renovation number above. So that's why those are, zero.
I know.
Okay.
Yeah, site
And
lighting.
so the oh, sorry.
It would be nice to reorganize it in that way, just because at some point we gotta explain this to the public.
Yes.
Right.
Hey, Joe,
Once we understand it, we should be able to explain it.
Well, no, but Joe, I think you just want to,
Great idea.
Yeah, they should just show it.
Joe, you just put it in the bucket that's the most appropriate.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I,
the site lighting just goes under the site improvements, just slide it up.
some of this was left in, because we're going, sooner or later, we're gonna have to explain it. So that means we're gonna get to the original budget, and it's gonna say site lighting, and we're gonna say, but now we can say it's included above.
Well, we can't show zero, you just slide it.
Yeah, we'll just say part of the.
Right,
Well, site improvements.
You're gonna add,
Include those
exactly,
other
you're gonna
things.
put them all
We'll have a
together.
drop down.
There's a number.
yeah. Okay. I'm, okay,
We could have a drop down, site
Yeah.
improvements, drop it down, I can show you.
Yep,
where it's-
yep. Okay.
The line items there, we
Okay.
just-
Unless it's a utility connection, it's a separate contractor doing the work, then I would just slide them all up into wherever they go. Right, the gas, I don't know if the 20
Yes,
grand is.
this, we've committed, we've committed to Eversource to be an all electric building. So, gas is,
we did.
gas is zero.
Really?
When did we do that?
When they promised us, big refund, big rebates on our design.
Okay. So
And
geothermal,
the only gas that was in there was for the kitchen. That was the only,
I thought the heating systems.
no, the heating was all electric.
The heating
Recall that
system,
conversation.
Neither
I don't think I would have agreed. That's a bad idea.
What is?
The operating costs for electric heating for that building?
They're all heat pumps.
let's,
Okay.
Okay.
I don't think we had
Specifics there.
flushed out that conversation.
Well, it's coming right up because we're gonna go down next to geothermal.
Yep.
Yes, I'd say cut that. I don't think that you're gonna get the payback.
With geothermal, absolutely. I agree with that 100%. Zero.
Which means you're pulling electric off the grid. Now the operating costs are through the roof.
Yep, that's the problem.
But it's
You
still,
do have to put gas, I mean,
Pumps are still more, say,
much more efficient. Yes.
but it's still gonna be very expensive.
I think Tom had an analysis at one of the meetings you might have not been at, he had a breakdown.
so we do have that information, we presented it to the committee, we're proposing an air source VRF system for the building, which is extremely efficient. It is mostly or all electric. I don't know why we're showing gas, that may have been,
Kitchen.
excuse me,
Kitchen.
kitchen equipment. And at the end of the day, there may be a hot water requirement, and that product may be a gas-fired hot
That's what
water
I'm
heater
wondering.
facility. Because doing the hot water with a heat pump hot water system is extremely expensive and sort of
It's
doesn't
not
really
the
work
most
that
efficient.
well. So, but it's a limited gas service to the building. The VRFs are extremely efficient. And the MEP engineer actually gave the committee a report about the payback time on the geothermal compared to the use of the VRFs. Just for this particular building,
That I did
it
see.
didn't make sense. We can revisit that if need be, but at the time, the committee indicated, well, based on that information, it doesn't make sense for us to use geothermal for this building. I'll also point out that at the SD estimate phase, the value of the geothermal system was 360. The credit for removing it was 360. I will get to you, just one more second. When we had it detailed and estimated, the value to put all of the wells and the pumps in was increased to 968, which was more in alignment with the geothermal estimate that was originally put together.
I do recall that conversation, and I think you're right. I just question heating, domestic hot water, electrical.
Well, domestic hot water may be an exception, because, but the place that when you use heat pumps, if you have a backup system, you have an emergency system, that's resistance heating. Then, because I had one of those in my condo, and the cost of.
Felicia, you wanna?
Yeah,
Conversation.
so I would just like to
I'm sorry,
request,
Felicia, I
as,
did not see it.
as the facilities department representative from the town here, as somebody who is right now in charge of 3 HVAC modernization and replacement projects, we really, really, really need to be in on these conversations because we're going to be the one inheriting them, maintaining them. And we know those costs down to a T because we run all the buildings. We've done all this math through multiple systems. Peter Anderson has worked on multiple geothermal projects. We really need to be at the table when these type of decisions are happening. And that's not to encroach on the purview of this building committee, but as the department that is going to inherit all of the costs of maintaining this building, we have knowledge that we would like to incorporate into the decision-making process in the end.
So should we table that and have a special meeting to just talk about the approach?
I am very strong about that. And that was directly from not only my boss, but his boss to come. That is why I'm here.
I think it would be, you might be interested to take a look at that analysis with the heating and cooling versus geothermal. So it was pretty thorough.
Okay.
That's a good place to start too.
We have both.
And analysis of buying electricity off the grid versus going half and half, because the finance department in the town will tell you all the time about purchasing from Eversource and how those rates fluctuate and all of that. We need to be in on those conversations so that we know how to budget for future years for this building that is coming online.
There was another issue with the geothermal. The wells would be were set to be drilled around the ball fields, and that means that the ball fields would have to be replaced also. So even though the payback on this was considered, this geothermal system of itself was considerable, but I'm remembering 40 years, maybe it's
It
20
wasn't
years.
that high, I think it was 25.
25 years. And,
But that was, I think there was a couple of assumptions. I think it potentially warrants another discussion with the people who are doing it. I would agree, because I think that and it may not be that we go with geothermal, but we may not go with straight electric either because of the potential spikes in the history that we've seen in that. So I think if we could have a special meeting just to have a discussion on this so that everyone who has the depth and breadth of knowledge from the town also talks through and reviews what was done and helps come to this final decision.
But I think for this analysis, I'd like to just keep that at 0. Because I know you're talking about the gas versus electric. There's a very large percentage of the electricity generated in our section of New England based on gas. So gas and electric prices usually go, they ladder and they fall in tandem. Maybe not as much of a difference, but when gas goes up, electricity goes up. Because of the
So you want
generation, the percentage of generation in New England that's run by gas.
So you're proposing to take it out?
Take it out.
What about
And
the
then-
other things we
and
talked
then-
about?
I think until we have, I disagree, and I think we need to bring in the people, like she said, that are gonna be maintaining this. And we've got somebody who is now very focused with us and not to necessarily take over what we're doing, but I think at least allow them to have the conversation before this is taken out. If we're gonna keep the exterior the same and what was promised to the public, and this was a big thing promised to the public, right in there. So if we're going under the analogous of what was presented to the public originally in the referendum, this was a very big piece of that.
I disagree with that. I think
You
it's
say
visible.
this, Joan,
Go ahead.
Geothermal was a very big piece of it. There was a reason why it was put in at the time. And it was a very big piece and it was talked about as well. So, and I can tell you it was something that was talked about when people were voting on it. So, and I was pretty involved in understanding how the votes were coming in. So I think that it, rather than, take that off, I mean, I think at least allow the staff to come in and the people who have been working on the projects of updating some of the other buildings to come in and just speak to it. And allow them to have, have a conversation and be able to read through what was presented by the.
Some more comments and then take a vote. I think, Joe, you wanted to say something?
No, I was just gonna say, I think it's worth having a special meeting to discuss it. I would leave it out there. Based upon the data we have today, but I would think a separate meeting,
I agree.
special meeting would be good. to flesh
And I
out.
think the special meeting could go beyond geothermal versus VRFs versus gas versus whatever.
Yeah, no, a holistic approach, yeah.
Tom's talking.
I would actually recommend you let our team work with town staff, have that conversation and then report back to the building committee.
Yeah.
Once we plan on having another meeting to talk about finishes and some value engineering options. That meeting got postponed, for whatever reason, but, I would prefer to handle that technical decision, directly with town staff so that we don't encumber the committee with a lot of the technical issues. And Felicia makes a good point. When we do our evaluation, we're looking at just pure direct upfront costs versus, energy usage. We're not looking at things like what's the town's capacity to buy blocks of kilowatts versus blocks of cubic feet of gas. And, maybe they'll have some opine on that. But, why don't I have that meeting and then report back to this committee?
I think I'd like to be able to today say in or out on the, because when you're talking about blocks of gas, that still mean that would essentially eliminate the geothermal. If you're gonna go to a gas.
Depends on what you use it for, but.
Yeah, I would say.
Can I request that it be a special meeting, because even though it may get very technical, somewhere along the way, people are gonna try to drill down on this. The last meeting that a town meeting was held to approve what was going on with town
This meeting, they did not get a quorum, so the recommendation was approved. It wasn't, the town never got a.
Right, I understand.
It's different too. You don't know what you're comparing it to. You're comparing it to chillers and rooftop units, or you're comparing it to VRF or something else.
But what I'm wondering is why can't the technical discussion be held between our engineering team and the facility staff? And then we report back to the building committee, which is a public meeting.
I do think in that meeting also, it's larger than just should we go geothermal. It's sharing all of our town standards for all mechanical systems. Here's the building monitoring system we want. Here's the type of electrical panels we want. Here's what we like to see in our plumbing fixtures and our outlets and our cleanouts. All of that technical stuff on how we actually run a building, mechanical wise, when you're talking plumbing, electrical, HVAC, all of that. We have pretty set standards that we have throughout the town. We're trying to make those even more efficient as we go. So we would like to be able to review this building and make sure it folds into what we already have existing and what we are getting. Because the contracts for maintenance, we buy as a larger umbrella. So we would like to have, ABS who manages our building control system. We would like them on this, because then we can leverage that, having 10 buildings on that. So just those type of technical details that don't make much of a difference on the bottom line and don't make much of a difference in what you see design wise, make a huge difference in how we can service the building. And so that would be a great thing to have, just have Tom come sit down with Peter and I offline, Mark Mastriano, and just say, boom, 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 this is what we would like to request standard across the door. Things like hardware as well, door locking and key, just the general standards. And that I think is something that all of you don't need to be dragged down with. It's just a sharing of town information to the architect that we would like to do, before we get to a standard design review.
Some of those things have cost implications.
They do, yes.
But most of them have limited cost implications. The geothermal system, or changes in the mechanical systems would significant cost.
And I agree, it doesn't have to include the committee, the report to the committee would be.
We would expect the report evaluates different options. Leads us to a conclusion of
Yeah.
why you're recommending a certain path.
But if
I would still like, I'd still like to sort of call this and just say, are we gonna, before we get into larger discussions, are we gonna keep the geothermal in or out? And I think just we need to have a committee vote. We'll do whatever you say.
Can I ask one question though? Is the 968 above and beyond what the system is that he estimated?
Yes,
So it's not, it's 968,000 plus the 500,000 or whatever he's got in there,
yes.
or whatever the number is.
Yeah, that's the delta.
Yeah, so that's a big number.
To
And,
give you a
and what we were told was that it's the specific cost of drilling the wells that has gone up considerably. So I imagine, Tom, you could, that 968 is primarily the cost of the wells.
But those are also straight costs, assuming no kind of grants, funding, or anything else. That's the other piece of the puzzle that I think needs to be
You're out.
spoken about.
You're out.
Out.
Out,
Out.
out, okay, zero it. Thank you.
I'd like to go back, though, if we're gonna do that, I'd like to go back to the exterior stairs and courtyard and do a vote specifically on that then.
I think we did, but we can do it again. if
Oh,
you'd like.
I don't think we did. I think we
Exterior,
said we'll look at the end. I'd like to do an individual vote on that then.
Yes.
Can we go down and take a look, just how much farther we have to go?
There's one more left here, which is the hazardous material
Sure.
line item, and that's the 550, which would have to be brought over.
Okay.
That is lower than the original 830 that was estimated, and that is because the extent of the demolition is not as great. Correct, Tom?
Correct.
There was initially thought of, more of the existing building, foundation, footing components that would have to be removed. And because those would remain in the site, that portion of the abatement work is not required, so that's why that number is lower.
And is that 1948 kind of correct?
So that is the total of,
Would you
Of
give
all
us
this,
the,
yeah.
just look at the,
that's all that total
Okay,
there is,
good.
that summation.
okay.
It's equal to that number there.
Okay, do you want to go back? We can go back to the,
Hold on, make sure
Oh,
it is,
sorry.
make sure it does. So that's what it ended in. 13 to 35. Okay. Oh, 13? That's everything.
Yes. You want to do that again? Is the question?
we can, we could do a vote on the design, the duct design alternate. I would say we should essentially not consider it. So we keep a zero there. And this, we don't have to do a motion, I think we could do just essentially a poll, which is what we've been doing. I say out. Joe,
Come back to it.
I'm in, keep it in.
in,
Hold on.
Out.
Wait, just,
So you're,
means we stick with the original design and
Yes.
and assume the extra 544,000.
correct.
Now.
so we're adding in 500,000 for the new design versus the old design with the outdoor stairs and courtyard elevator.
Correct.
No,
And the original design has a ramp over the,
The original design has no ramp.
no ramp.
The original design has the elevator essentially.
Not an
at that
exterior,
grade.
an exterior.
Yeah, it was an exterior, so I mean, the design's gone out the window because it was an exterior elevator.
I mean exterior. So the original design is at grade
Yes,
and the revised one had a ramp.
a
exterior.
ramp and stairs.
Stairs.
And the
Well,
other
no,
thing
the
that-
original design for the estimated referendum had an outdoor elevator. That did. So that got changed to the first design that came through when we were looking at architects. It got revised from an outdoor elevator to an inside at that point.
the
The
other
original
one that-
referendum had an outdoor elevator.
The original design alternate on this 544 is that if, when you put the elevator in this, it doesn't connect the two sides of the
Yeah, no, I
building.
get it.
And then, so you have to do additional work to connect it, makes sense.
Yeah, I think we'll be labeled. I'd say leave it in and come back and address it later.
Right. Okay.
So that is your number.
Versus,
For those of us who are,
Now, this is inclusive of the soft costs.
Okay.
Yeah.
What
The
about the
soft
hard costs?
costs essentially are not changing.
So we're
this
still
is-
way over on the hard costs.
You have FF&E that totals $700,000 from the original referendum budget. And that is that same total there. This is, the 119.6 is specific to the kitchen equipment because that was something that was provided in the reconciliation estimate. So that number is more closely defined versus the 125. This 580 is just the balance between the 700,000 on the FF&E line minus the 119.6. The fees are fees and expenses. These are the current numbers based on, where those figures are. These are, architectural fees, project PM fees, and I think we can attest to those being, current with the existing budget. Right. And then the last two line items here are the contingency, which are originally these two numbers here. They are now 353 and 356.4, slightly modified to account for some funding that may have been transferred in to address some of the fees that were changed between the referendum timeframe and today.
Why does the contingency not change between columns H and J?
H and J, because these are just we're just carrying that over. They changed from the original here to the reconcile because these again were the original time of the referendum, and this is what is on the current.
F and H is just with alternates and without alternates. They're
Right.
both updated,
That's F and
estimates,
H, yeah, that's
but
what.
the soft costs all carry.
Soft costs are the same between F, H, and J.
so the difference is $2 million.
Well,
Do we- Without the
bottom,
alternates.
right? Did we just,
Well,
why did we carry over the kitchen? Didn't we say we might not do the kitchen?
So and that was a question I had also. Why is the kitchen equipment in both the without
Yeah, one of them's without all.
valves?
Yeah, kitchen equipment, it was an alternate.
this is without the alternates.
Exactly.
I don't see this, I don't see the playground.
That
But
125
but we made that an add-on.
in this line here in this column H. This is with the add alternates.
Yeah, well, we're saying it shouldn't be.
Okay.
It should be zero.
It should be zeroed there because
If,
I thought we made the kitchen equipment, the kitchen itself an alternate. Because it's something we added
well,
on.
we made the equipment.
Or maybe, yeah, you're right.
So we were gonna
Right.
stop it down, make it ready to install equipment. That was.
So, yeah. And I want to go back to the same question. If we got 370,000 for site improvements, which I was told earlier, that includes the drives, the parking, site improvements and landscape and plantings, then why is there still new parking, site patio, place, new parking is excluded? So the parking isn't included in the 370 for the site
It is.
improvements?
It is, but
Not
not to this degree.
not
That's
the
what you're
parking
looking at.
lot.
Not the parking lot.
Using
correct.
existing parking that's already there, that's what that is. That's upgrades.
It's resurfacing versus the beautiful design that,
Well, it's
we all have to
reusing the parking that's out in front of Old Town Hall,
Yeah.
like that, whatever the street is, Academy Street.
So you can find the original referendum plans online. If you want to compare. You originally had 91 proposed parking spaces in the pre-referendum design.
So that,
91 new ones.
Just 91
So
total.
how-
Existing is 30, according to this. Proposed on-site is 66, proposed front of building is 25. Front of building you already have. I don't think you're intending to do anything to that. So it would be the ones that are sort of off to the south side and then between this building and then, Memorial Town Hall.
The parking is based on usage, right? This is form, this is like, so. So kitchen,
It is, but it's also based on how much can we actually fit.
no, understood.
So all of the alternates that are identified in this bottom list, right here at alternates, are in the estimate numbers above, except for the 3 items that are gray, correct?
Correct.
And just to complicate things a little bit more, the site patio and playscape number, that includes costs to relocate the playscape because we have to put the septic system where the playscape currently is, and the playscape moves closer to the building. And that includes the really nicely designed exterior patio activity space, which connects the front walkway, the front parking area to the rear entrance and parking area. The base bid includes just, minimum required sidewalk to connect those two. So that needs number 69. We have had some conversations about this line 69. Should probably be broken out into 2 pieces. One is the patio or the playscape component, and one is the site patio component.
And for my information, is that all new playscape components?
It's all new playscape.
Okay, so not proposing to reuse what's existing.
That's correct, but the reason we broke some of this stuff out is because there had been multiple conversations about potentially things outside the building envelope being able to be funded in different avenues, and the fact that Austin at the time indicated he had a budget allocation for a new playscape. I don't know what that is, to be honest with you, Austin, so.
I just think Austin and I will both agree that reusing the existing playscape is not an option.
Yeah.
From a liability and a reinstallation standpoint. I just want to put that out there.
No, yeah. No, that it was part of CIP. It's an approved project in CIP already for the new playscape, because we have to, every few years or so, or however many years, they get redone.
Doesn't
So
have
that-
to be 3 million, does it?
Yeah, I know, seriously.
I would say that's.
So I guess if I apologize, because I still want to go back to getting an understanding of what that 370 truly entails then. If we're on top of that, needing another 271 for parking. So
It's the difference between just cleaning up what's there and the mess we make versus the beautiful design when we looked at the exterior design with the patios and the drop-off areas and.
no, I'm not talking the patios. I'm just talking literally the new parking. 270,000 is not included in that 370,000 for site improvement.
That's correct.
I get the playscape, I get all that. I completely agree. I'm just trying to figure out what that is.
So the 370 would include making minimum sidewalks that connect the existing parking area to the building. It would include maybe resurfacing, milling and putting new paving down in the existing footprint of the existing parking area. When you add the 271 in, what we're doing is we're expanding the parking area and we're reconfiguring it, we're regrading it, we're providing all new subsurface storm drainage structures. So it's the loose difference between rebuilding the parking lot and just sort of resurfacing the existing parking area.
So I would hazard to say that I would want that 271 in. Or a note that it's, rather than it be out. because the current parking lot, yeah,
I'd love for all of them to be.
Yeah, me too. Tom, did we get an approval, or have we even proposed the number of parking places for the building? And have that, whoever approves that, planning and zoning, or,
We have not gone through the planning and zoning process as of yet.
no, not gonna get that, yeah.
The other question I would have is, you mentioned that the septic has to be done now. Septic has to go where the playscape is. So like, if I tie these pieces together, there isn't an option to do the septic without doing the playscape.
That's correct. The
Unless we're
playscape,
eliminating the facility from the town.
the playscape has to be moved to accommodate the septic because the soils in the back of the building really only the soils under the playscape accommodate a new leaching field. So, so the playscape has to be moved, but the playscape, there's an allocation to do that to do that work.
In the septic bid?
No, that's
town's
a separate funding source, separate funding,
It's in the capital
Outside
improvement plan.
capital improvement.
outside the project.
The playscape's handling this town CIP budget.
whether
So-
McCanley was gonna be built or not, the playscape was going to be replaced in some way.
Okay, and that money is already accounted for in the 993.
That money is in the 993, but we need to break the 993 out to be site patio and playscape. Correct.
So that they can say, well, minus whatever the town is already gonna pay.
Right.
And that would be the extra cost.
That's correct.
Okay.
And again, I apologize, we're trying our best. These estimates don't go apples to apples that well. The original project budget was very loose. It was based on square footage numbers and, you know, idealistic scope of work, very conceptual. And now we have very detailed scope of work and the numbers, we're trying to align numbers and we're doing our best and.
We need to be able to explain it. That's I think what this is all about. So,
Understood. But, you know, rebuilding the parking area ideally should be accomplished. But at the end of the day, there's only so much money, so.
right.
New baseball field, just FYI, that 188, that is so if we do the geothermal wells behind the building, that baseball field's gonna get disturbed significantly. There was a concept that proposed just rebuilding the baseball field and putting it where the playscape is. So, that doesn't have to be done. The baseball field can stay where it is, if you don't do the geothermal wells. So that's not something that's not a cost you have to take on. And as of right now, that Little League, I think it's a Little League field is plugged at 188. It's a natural grass field. You know, I think that cost could be bigger if it was a standalone project. If it's lumped in with all the site work, maybe it's a little bit less than if it was a standalone project. Again, this is a work in process. And we have significantly greater detail now at the DD level than we did at the SD level. And, you know, when we go to the next level, ultimately, hopefully, there will be significantly more detail layered upon the concept and the numbers will get stronger and stronger. I do believe we have a design and estimating contingency in this estimate. That's correct.
Yes, 5%.
There's 5%. So if you look in the overall estimate, there's a 5% number.
Right here.
So it's
This line.
set approximately $600,000. I don't know which column we're looking at.
549.
So $550,000, which is in the estimate, which right now just covers design things that we don't know that we're gonna have to incorporate. For instance, Felicia's gonna tell me I need to use stainless steel doorknobs instead of regular steel doorknobs, right?
No, she's
Uh,
not.
Or she wants a building control system, which we probably have in there. If I know Kohler Ronin, I'm pretty sure it's in. But as we layer details in, we're gonna, that design and estimating contingency will move to.
I'm not a big fan of, where I come from, contingency is a dirty word. This is just added costs that we want to spend money on things that we don't really get to debate. If they're design standards, they should be in here, and we shouldn't be putting $500,000 contingencies in.
It's going to get there, but the scope of work is only the design development level scope. So this is how the estimators do it. Both estimators carried it. What I'm telling you.
Everyone loves contingencies.
Everyone
Everyone loves contingencies.
Great.
And it gets spent.
As we go to the next level of detail, those
drop to zero.
contingencies will drop away.
I'm sure they will.
But they'll be in the GC, so
So the people doing the estimates that don't have.
move to his line.
They may or
Doesn't
may
help
not.
them.
No, it doesn't help them at all.
It's $2 million. That's,
The markups are too big. Contingencies, yeah. I understand. I just,
can
I
you do that
just don't,
subtraction, John, so we can see it?
it's a percentage. Still, we gotta come back to the kitchen equipment, in a second, something. Making sense.
Joe, you want to go back to budget?
Just, if you can go up to uncompact, is there 125,000 for kitchen equipment?
There was $119,600.
Yeah, but you have-
Originally, it was.
Well, 125 in the original, what? Referendum budget had specific.
You didn't take that $6,000, $5,000 savings.
Okay, so you just carried everything over.
It should be, you should have carried 575 over instead of 580. But for $5,000, I'm not gonna.
I mean, yeah, our budget reconciliation, I'm
Yeah.
doing the math. If we don't do the geothermal, we don't do the baseball field, but we do everything else, it's a $4 million difference.
Right.
$5,000 is,
No, it's not gonna.
I don't even want to talk about it.
It's up, it's $2 million. We have, it's.
So that 125, is that?
Well, we're
shooting out
now.
the kitchen, is that
Yes.
stuff?
So I'm saying if we add all the add-ons,
Oh, I see.
all the stuff that we all want.
That's my point, because if
Oh,
it's,
I don't know what it was from the original.
it's not gonna get us anywhere where we need, I'm just saying to be accurate, if it's just stubbing things out, that's fine, but if there's a full kitchen fit out, then it does, the full amount doesn't belong to column.
The line items says kitchen equipment, so we're assuming it was.
Joe, have you ever done a kitchen in your house? Yeah. How much did it cost? Mine cost me $40,000 10 years ago.
Mine's about that. My kitchen costs about that.
Yeah.
No, my point is I'm wondering how much of, just the kitchen was an add-on. We did agree to stuff it out, so it's a portion, it's not all.
I'm sorry, the 119.6 is just the kitchen equipment.
Just the kitchen.
The stub outs are in the base scope of work, the significant renovation.
Okay, so
119
that's
is a
part of the
true
mechanic.
add-on.
119 is a true add alternate. It is the equipment. Stoves, fans,
Where's the grease trap?
I don't.
No, I know, but it's from a facility standpoint, that's what I'm worried about.
No, the grease trap will be outside the building it's in the site work number,
Right,
but.
But you pull that out.
I think
Well,
we're,
my
I
point
think
is in that
we're,
125
Well,
on the row.
where do we go
should be
finding
an
all the
alternate, it's just
infrastructure for the kitchen except for the kitchen?
Joe, where do we go from here?
Could you
Uh,
Yeah, what if we just?
two, well, there's the
Are you
first,
really
first
gonna
this,
break my down?
this we have to, this is now public, right? Everybody's gonna know it.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to go to the town and say, to Al and say, okay, if we want to build what, we have come up with a design that we believe is true to in some fashion, plus or minus, to what was done in or what was included in the referendum. And it's $2 million, it's $1.924 million more than is in our budget. Tell us what you'd like to do. In the meanwhile, I think what we're going to do for our next meeting, which is about 2 weeks away, is we're going to do the same exercise, God help us, to get down to 15.9 if we can, or something very close to 15.9. And then we have a sort of a, do we want to do one extreme or the other, or do we want to try to do something in the middle? Where do we, what kind of direction are we going to get in terms of additional money or no money?
I mean, if we're gonna have a fruitful conversation and try to get that to 15.9, we've gotta be able to somehow scope the building down as well. Like, that's gotta be a lever that we can, because this is a big amount to make up. I don't think we're gonna make features in basketball hoops. So, like, you slash to these numbers by saying we're not renovating X percentage of the building anymore, right? Like,
Or we just cut the scope.
or
I don't think you can do that.
I'm talking about the basketball nets, but I had this Excel before, a few days ago, and you can't value engineering your way from 18.2 to 15.9.
Yeah, there's just, yeah.
Even with the but there's, you mentioned, you gotta look at scope, you gotta look at what we promised and what we believe we can still have a functioning building, but not what we original concept.
Can I make it worse?
Go ahead.
Why not?
Always.
We know what you promised. It's identified. It costs more than what you originally had allocated. So based on today's market costs, you can't deliver the original project for the monies that you have in place. We have those costs. That's what the market costs are associated with that scope. So I also agree with Joe, is you can't value engineer. Once you start trying to back out of this, it's very difficult to get to 15.9, because every time you take something out, you get 60 cents on the dollar. What I believe you have to do is, if you want to deliver a project for the 15.9, you have to start at 0 and buy scope up to 15.9. So you start at 0 and you say, okay, we have to do the roof. The roof is X dollars. We have to replace the windows and rehab the envelope of the building. That's X dollars. We have to improve the MEP systems up to X amount. That's X dollars. That will stabilize your asset. That's going to cost us X. I don't know, that might cost us $8 million. Well, now we have $4 million left to spend. What's the next most important thing? Do we add on the elevator and the front entrance so that we have accessible access? Realistically, doing the value engineered concept makes sense, because that concept can be added to the building as opposed to, tearing out the core of the building and reconstructing the building. As your architect, I don't want you to do that, but I think if you're going to buy back scope, that's the easiest way to isolate scope that you can buy back. That might be $2 million worth of work. Now you're at 10. What can you do with that last $2 million? What can we renovate? Can you possibly renovate one portion of the building that will provide either service for offices or service for community use? That's your discretionary spending. It's the last $2 million. And I think you have to look at it that way if you want to try and deliver a project for the base scope of work. And then the rest would have to be done incrementally in the future. Oh, don't forget the septic system.
Thanks.
And a dirt.
No, that's only if we open the building now. We just want to fix it up and leave it there.
Right.
Well, no, I understand that, but
But if you want to open the building, you have to do the septic. No matter what other scope you do, that's a non, you have to have the septic to put even one person in an office.
either way, this is a lot of information for everybody. Everyone's just seeing it, you know, in the last few days. I think kind of need to absorb it and start thinking about it. And, you know, at the next meeting, maybe there'll be some new insight, but I do believe meeting with Felicia and her team will shine some light on this. She did have some ideas about some potential options to, you know, value engineer the project, save a few dollars here and there.
Not
And
gonna find
Felicia,
2
this-
million, but-
No, you're not gonna find this 2 million. Al's gonna find this 2 million. He told me. He promised me.
And Felicia,
So-
this is why we postponed that
Mhm.
finishes meeting, so
Yeah.
we can get through this.
So one of the things that's probably a good time to bring it up is Ann and I met with the Director of Finance, Bond Counsel, and the First Select Woman. And there is a capability to, right now, there is no capability to increase the expenditure. We voted on bonding and the expenditure. So the hard budget is 15.9. We can go back to the public and say, we're only bonding 11.99, but we want to expend this amount of money. That would give us a little bit more money, but that could be from private donations. Because we could then set up, and I'm going to be talking to people about this, a private foundation or a funding source where people, if they feel strongly about putting in really good kitchen equipment per se, they can supplement and say, I'm going to donate that 100 or 200,000 or whatever the commercial grade level would be. But I want my name on the kitchen. We want to renovate the main stage in the gym. But we want to, you know, so people could basically donate to this funding source privately. That funding source then donates to the town. The town then would then accept that donation and it would be applied specifically to various parts of the project. We're still in the discussion phases. We're still in trying to figure out how that could be done. But unless it is approved that the expenditures are higher than 15.9, then that is our hard budget, period, end of sentence. There is no way to add to that.
You know, when I took this position, I didn't think it was gonna be this hard. I thought we were gonna hire an architect, hire an engineer, and away we go. Anyway, I think we're coming to the end of our time here and also the end of our energy. And so I'd like to, actually, we have a public comment on that we normally do here. Anybody on, Jeannie?
People are on, but they have not raised their hands.
Raise hands. I'd like to move to close the meeting. All in favor?
Hi,
Thank you, everyone.
All right, thanks.
thank you.